And welcome to today's edition of the Martial Arts Mastery Podcast. I am your host, Jonathan Field, and I have a really special guest here with me today. We have Chip Townsend, the legendary Chip Townsend, 14-time ISK world champion, multiple school owner, seventh-degree black belt, author, podcaster, you name it, he does it. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Jonathan, it's so good to see you, my friend. I'm honored to be here and just thankful you reached out to me, my friend.
And I'm grateful that you decided to come on the podcast today. So yeah,
Yes, sir.
you and I are always super busy. We've known each other formally since 2008 when we first met in Dallas U.S. Opens and ISKA World Championships in Orlando, Florida. I know
Right.
we were Facebook friends a little bit before that, but not we didn't really talk. But I remember I was at the U.S. Open, and I'm just kind of standing around, and you walk by, and you kind of look at me and go, "You're Jonathan Field." I'm like, "Yep." And then that's how we met. It's just one of the really cool, casual things, thanks to social media.
I know, right? It's like you have friends you don't even know you have, man. It's like
Mhm.
we're following each other before we get to know each other, right?
Yep, that's kind of the cool thing. 'Cause you're almost kind of like interviewing somebody before you actually get to know them, so you kind of get know them a little bit, and it almost kind of breaks the ice. So when you do meet each other, it's like instant, right? Um,
That's right.
yeah. Yep. I would have saw you way before that. Well, the reason why I got you on Facebook was I saw you up here on our version of ESPN. You doing all the breaking for ISKA, and I kind of saw that stuff. But okay, cool. And there was like Larry Field, Drew Toronto, all those breakers that era, right? And then
Right.
I was interested in breaking and came down 2007. I think that was the year that you were recovering from Achilles tendon or something. 2007.
Actually, 2006, I pulled out to recover in January of 2006. I severed it in Atlantic City, New Jersey. 2007, I was in Las Vegas doing a show for Century Martial Arts out of the Super
Wow.
Show. I did
Yeah,
a big demo on for those guys.
yeah. So then you came back in 2008, and the way you went, yeah.
Yes,
So,
sir.
so for the people that don't know you yet, which a lot of us do, can you kind of tell us your early childhood and kind of progress to how you got into the martial art?
Absolutely, my friend. So I am from West Texas. I'm from Abilene, Texas, more specifically, which is kind of north central ish Texas. And in Texas, we don't talk in minutes; we talk in hours. That's 3 hours that way. That's 2 hours. So it's a big place, right? And when I was 3 years old, I actually lost an eye. So I have a prosthetic eye, and now that I'm 52, I have to wear my readers so I can see the small screen. Sadly, I have had 2015 vision in that one eye until just the last couple of years here, where it's like when I'm reading up close now, I got to put on my readers. But I lost an eye when I was three, and going into school, my eye would fall out, and it looked funny, and kids would make fun of me and kind of pick and poke and prod. And I was a West Texas kind of country kid, and my parents were very much you can do anything you put your mind to, and it's going to be okay. I have a memory of going. My mom took me to play pee wee, like t-ball, pee wee baseball, and I remember she said, "Hey, you stay over here," and left me kind of at the fence and went over and talked to the coach for a little bit. And she come back and said, "Okay, let's go." And I was like, "What happened?" And she goes, "They won't let you play because of your eye." And so, we ran across a few things like that as I was growing up. Get into school, I'd be walking from the school building to the lunchroom. You'd have to trek across the playground outside, and you'd sneeze, dust blowing around, and my eye would fall out, and the kids would laugh, and so just that kind of thing. Not to mention, my loving parents nicknamed me Chip, and in West Texas, in West Texas, we tossed cow chips for fun, things like that, right? So I got picked and poked and prodded quite a bit as a kid. About 13 years old, I spent. People have a hard time believing this, and it was all in fun. But when I was 4, I negotiated my first hourly wage with my dad. He had an oil field business, and so I would literally ride along in the truck at 4, and he'd give me a little jobs, move that pile of trash over there, do that. And I'm sure I played more than I worked, but he tried to raise me to learn how to earn my keep and work. And when I was 13, for some reason, one summer I wasn't with my dad, and uh, we were driving by the martial arts school that we own now. And I just told my mom, I said, I've always been interested in that. I'd like to take classes. Uh, also at that time, I was getting hammered at school quite a bit, by kids, making fun of the eye, it just, I was never one of the standout star students in school. I made good grades, but I was kind of one of the odd ducks, and so anyway, with that said, we're driving by and my mom said, "You want to do that?" And I really do. And she turned around, pulled in and signed me up. And I did a month of private lessons, and then got into a regular class. That was, let's see, somewhere around June or so of 1985. And so that's where I got started at, man.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, so I've been listening to your podcast, and you've gone into a little more depth and stories about that, and also in your leadership book, you kind of go into more depth. So anybody that's interested in really getting to know Chip, I would recommend his podcast or the Team Chip leadership book on Amazon. Those are fantastic reads. Yeah, so you go into your the whole detail of your early days and training, how it was like it wouldn't cut it today, right? Like we're old school where the training that we went through now or then, you can't do that now. It's like, no.
Right.
But
Yeah,
I know that shaped us, right?
it did. It did. I wouldn't trade it for anything because it did shape us. And you talk about our my my very first private lesson. I for whatever reason, we would do them in the middle of the day. I opted that summer to stay home a little more and not go with my dad and work with him. And so my mom would drive me. We lived about 20 miles out of town, so she would drive me 20 miles to come to the private lesson. My very first one, my instructor's name was Young Sun Lim, and an old school Korean from Osan, Korea, and super sweet guy. I love him to death. But my first lesson, he put me in a uniform, put me in my white belt, and he walked me just inside the door of the dojang of the school. He set me in the floor and he made me stretch for the first hour. And stretching composed of setting in like a hurdler stretch with my legs straight forward, leaning forward, with him sitting on my back, feet wide, sitting on my back. He basically punished me for an hour, like pretty unbelievably. And we were leaving that day, and my mom, through all of my first lessons for a long time, because I wasn't old enough to drive, when she drove 20 miles, she sat and watched every class. And we left, and we're driving home, and I'll never forget this. She said we were about 10 miles towards home, and she said, Chip, she said, you know how to hunt, you operate heavy equipment, you know how to shoot a gun, you can defend yourself. You don't ever have to go back and do that again. And I was kind of surprised because my mom's, by most standards, would be considered pretty tough and mean, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know where it came from, but I looked at her and I said, "Mom, I wouldn't trade this for all the tea in China." It was just one of those cliches I'd heard as a kid. I didn't even know what it meant, but I was like, "I'm not stopping. I want to do this again." And anyway, that was my first lesson. So we would go in at lunch, that lunch hour, and did classes 5 days a week that first summer after I got through with my private lessons. And we sparred every day. The class was a ritual. You lined up the same. You did the exact same stretches. You did the exact same warm up kicks. You did the exact same movements. A couple of minutes of self defense, one steps, forms. Put on your gear and spar. And gear was foam, hands, and feet, and that was it. We didn't. If you had a mouthpiece, you were lucky. Some the guys wore a cup, some didn't. Anyway, so every day somebody got bloodied in class. It was just part of the way we grew up.
But so at that young age, so what was it for Taekwondo? What was it that made you want to continue? Like besides like learning how to defend yourself and stuff, but like what was that
Yeah,
one thing that it caught me?
yeah. Man, that's really hard to put a finger on, Jonathan. But I think that I was in junior high at that time, and I played basketball. I fouled out of every
Wow.
basketball game that I ever played in. I played football because in West Texas, it's football, basketball, and track. And if you don't do those three things, you don't fit in at all, right? And so I lined up for football in the seventh grade. My second practice, I broke my arm and was out for the season. I fouled out of every basketball game. Uh, I lined up for my eighth grade year, actually got through the first preseason practices, made a couple of games, and they set me on the bench. I remember one day, and this is all leading to why I stayed with Taekwondo. Uh, the coach put me in as a safety, and I normally didn't play safety. So a kid got a breakaway with the ball and was running for a touchdown. I drilled the kid, tackled him, stopped the touchdown, and my coach pulled me out and put me on the bench. He never told me why. I never understood. And he put a kid in that was like half my speed and my size to replace me. And that was like the only play I played in that whole game. And I spent the whole season on the bench. And when I started Taekwondo, I didn't have to depend on a team, and I was accepted. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
oh, you have one eye, dude. I don't care. As a matter of fact, my instructor would put a blindfold on me and make me kick hanging bags blindfolded because he's like, if you can't see on one side, let's practice blind on both sides. What if you get poked in the eye, right? Like, uh, and I just fell in love with it. It was just like, I can do this. I wasn't good at it. I took a butt kicking over and over and over, but uh, I just fell in love with it. And there's another little piece to that. My mom had four older brothers. One of them was a pro boxer for a short period. They were all kind of brawlers and fighters. And I grew up hearing those stories. And I just thought, I need to learn how to defend myself and fight. And this is the way I'm going to do it. So it stuck.
Yeah, no, that is the one thing about martial arts. And there's a lot of people that are not into team sports for whatever reason, whether they're just not
Right.
good at it or they just don't like them or it's just not their thing, right? But when they come out on the martial art mat, wow, this is my thing. Even though the atmosphere is very team like, right? We're always
It
working with
is.
each other. But at the same time, it's more about you're developing yourself personally but while encouraging other people. And again, you're not relying on other people to help you make that play or learn that thing. It's like it's in fact at the end of the day, it's all about you developing yourself, but with that family encouragement.
Yeah, the environment in martial arts. I tell people all the time. I feel hyper blessed. I'm so happy that God put me where I'm at because we have such a unique platform. We get on the mat, we touch your life physically, mentally, and for me, it's even spiritual. It's like it's a way I worship God. I mean, He gave me these gifts by giving them back. That's a type of worship for me. So like, I just you said something. It is a team mindset. We partner for drills. We have to partner to spar, but I don't care who the partner is. They can be bigger, younger, older, faster. I always have a partner. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And we are a team, and that partner can rotate. Where if you're on the and I am not anti-sports. So if people are listening, don't think Chip is anti-football or anything. I'm not. I've
Mhm.
watched a bazillion of my kids go from zero athleticism to absolute killer athletes and just dominate the football field, the basketball, court, the tennis courts, and I love that. Just getting to know I got to be a piece of that kid's life going to that level at whatever he's doing. But it is a team mindset, but it's very individual. It's up to me to put in the work. It's up to me to hit that next goal. No one's going to do it for me. And I think that's one of the things I fell in love with it.
And I think one of the interesting things that I try to tell my students is, when you are training with different partners, your job is to make your partner better, and their job is to make you better. So you're actually
Yes.
constantly making each other better. And it doesn't matter. I told my black belt, even if you're a black belt, and you got a white belt. That white belt, you can learn something from that person if you pay attention enough. It could be even the smallest little thing. It might be, you're sparring them, and that white belt got lucky and landed a shot. You go, uh-oh, I'm a black belt. I have to figure that out, right? There's always something to learn from everybody too.
Right.
That's one thing I love about it.
I love that, Jonathan. That's such a good mindset too. No matter, I don't care if someone's a white belt or a pink belt or whatever, you can always get hit. You can always get caught. You know what I mean? So, one of the philosophies that we follow in our martial arts school pretty heavily is but one of many is it's cooperative, not competitive. And the idea is, learn how to cooperatively work with your partners, like you said, to help to make yourself and them better, but don't let it get
Mhm.
too competitive. You don't want to have, you don't want to get crossways with each other. So that's one of the things. And I think another thing that's important for people to hear, when we bow to enter the mat, we talk about this all the time. You're pouring out your cup, you're an empty slate, you come on to learn, you're teachable, it's time to grow. And you leave your ego in your shoes and you leave your bad day in your shoes. Just be a blank slate for the next hour and grow so that you're better equipped to get in those shoes and handle the problems you left behind, right?
Yeah, and I think I know your daughter Trinity was saying that on one of the podcasts where when you take your shoes off, you leave all that junk during the day in your shoe, you go on the mat, you're dealing with the mat, then you can better equipped to deal with whatever's in your shoe afterwards. And I thought that was
Abs-
really powerful how she said that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm glad. I'm gonna share that with her. She's gonna be pumped that Jonathan heard that.
Well, I
she
mean, this is a
she knows who you are.
well, I know, well, back in, was it 2010, when I came down to Abilene to stay with you guys for a week, you were very generous
Right.
to have me stay with you and your family in your, at the time, you guys were living in the apartments of both of those men, right? And I
Right.
slept on the couch bed and whatever, right, in the living room. And I remember, so I mean, there was Slade. Slade was like, what, one and a half, two, whatever he was.
Right.
Trinity was, what, three? And then Lexi was wonder how old she was. But I remember, like, it was you and I and Trinity driving somewhere. I can't remember where. And then Trinity's like, where's so I don't I forgot how she said, but she goes, I love him. And you're like, what? You love him? That was kind of funny. It was funny.
Yeah.
It was funny.
Yeah.
She was cute. But
She's an absolute sweetheart. I love that you mentioned living. I That was such a great time having you come down and hang out with us. I Great memories, man. We in 2011 we actually bought a house, so we don't live above the dojang anymore. But something I wanted to say, I think that's related to that a little bit is, to have what others are not going to have, you have to be willing to do what others are not willing to do. And we
uh-huh.
lived up in those apartments for 9 years to make our business work and to figure this thing out. And we still don't have it figured out. We're still learning every day. But man, what a good time, man! I'm glad you remembered that. Trinity's gonna be
Oh,
pumped to hear that.
that was awesome. We can like, like, yeah, so I'm assuming Glen is the one that kind of cleaned it all up. But it was like it was yeah, it was like two or three apartments that you guys combined, and
Yes.
it was a nice. I would live there now. Like it was a really nice apartment, and then it was so convenient just to go downstairs. You're not looking. That was kind of the nice part. But the one thing I didn't enjoy per se, but yeah, I did enjoy it at the same time, was waking up at like 4:30 in the morning for 5 o'clock food camp, where it was.
Yes, sir. Well,
Probably
I
the
thought
day
you were gonna,
after I traveled. That was the worst. The day after I traveled, you're like, oh, I'm gonna get up. Like, oh, really? I just
Jonathan. We got it.
afterwards,
We
but
got to get up and go train, brother.
we got it
So
done.
listen,
Well, we were literally training. What, you and I were training, what, 2 or 3 times a day when I was down there?
yes, sir.
From, like,
Absolutely.
either with people or, like, together and taught classes, got physics stuff done. We got the knick-knack stuff. We went to your, I think it was, Lexi school for, what was, like, what was it, some kind of leadership, program that
Right.
they had at school.
We did a leadership program. That's right.
Yep, and then, we did the Taekwondo camp out on that weekend, the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We went to that was an army base where we did a camp out. We had what, like over 100 some odd Taekwondo people. Steve Fisher was there.
Yeah.
Master Grafford, Grafford, Gra-
Gafford. That's right. Greg Gafford. Yeah. You
Yep.
got to, man, your memory's like a steel trap, Jonathan.
Well, that's one thing I can remember stuff like that, but my short term memory I can't remember. But conversations and special things like that, you're not gonna beat my memory. But that was awesome.
That's
I got to
awesome.
um, it's quite an experience. And then like and for anybody that's listening, how generous you guys were. I know we had negotiated I can't remember what it was, like a price for I was gonna pay you to come down, and then when I went to pay you, you're like, nope, nope, it's all on us. And even Glenn's like kept asking, can I do your laundry for you? I'm like, no, I've packed enough clothes, nobody needs to look after me. I'm the simplest guest ever. Just leave me be and I'll look after myself.
Yeah, we had an amazing time with you, Jonathan. It was so fun having you here. We should do it again someday. So
Yeah, I
hey,
think good.
when you said that there was something you hated about being here, I had a feeling it was going to be the heat because I remember the heat. You were
Oh,
like, "Oh man, it's hot."
funny story, or two funny stories. One funny story, one not. So one was I just learned to climatize. So when we went to the camp out and everybody was kind of setting up, I just found the bench and just laid there for an hour. I'm like, I'm just gonna climatize. I think once I climatized, I was doing better than some of you Texans. But then what I hated, what I really kind of hated, not really hated, was the shower that I had at your place. It wouldn't heat up. I'm used to having warm showers because it's so cold up here in Canada. Your shower was freezing. By the time I got done, it just started to warm up. I'm like, really? So,
Well, I guess I forgot to tell you that showers are a long ways from the water heater downstairs. Give it a minute.
mhm. And I remember you also said, yeah, don't drink the water. we all had bottles of water. Like, don't drink Abilene water.
That's right. Yeah, that old building was so old. We never drank the water. We always did bottled or something. So or filtered the water some way. Yeah.
So I remember, so when I was down there, you had two Dojang running, or you had
Right.
the main one, and you had the one that was kind of like to the back of the building a little bit. Now you're running what, three or four of them at your location?
In the headquarter location here in Abilene where you were at, we
Yep.
have we have 4 floors, and then we have a garage with a workout space and weights and stuff in it. So we're close to 12,000 square feet at this location. Our secondary location, our corporate location in San Angelo, which is about 85 miles away, that we own there, we have about 6,000 square feet. It's 2 floors that we split, and then we have some office and seating and stuff like that. So pretty blessed to have big spaces and room for people to move.
Yeah, no, I was on your website there earlier. Actually, I'll put on, there you go, I'll put on the screen there. Teamchipmarshort.com. Yeah, actually, when I first met with you, you guys were Team Chip Taekwondo.
Right,
Now you're Team Chip martial arts. So I know you're like me. We have a traditional Taekwondo background, and we mix our curriculum in with kickboxing. That's kind of we're
right,
very close. Like I think our curriculum is very close in that retrospect. Even though you're at World Taekwondo, you're international, but we
right,
took the traditional, we mixed the kickboxing. I think you're more like a modern kickboxing K1 style, where we teach
right,
more like the old PKA, Phil Wallace style kickboxing, but kickboxing,
right.
kickboxing. But then we've also added other elements of our martial arts into our programs. I know you have a lot of you have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu program as well.
Right. Right. Yeah. And our Abilene location, we run a full Brazilian Jiu Jitsu program. We're at this location, 420 active students, something like that. We have and there's a little bit of crossover. Some people do both programs.
Mhm.
Most do one or the other, and we have about 77, I think, active in our jiu-jitsu program right now. So it's slowly coming up and growing.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah. So what was it that made you again kind of transition from okay, we are Team Chip Taekwondo, now
Right.
we are Team Chip Martial Arts? Was it more of a branding thing, or was it just because you added that program in, or
It was a little bit of both, Jonathan. Originally, just kind of a fun backside story, I think, is our school was called Master Lim's Taekwondo and Hapkido Academy, and that's what
I
it
mean,
was from the time it started and up until the early 2000s. And I was actually, I think, in Atlantic City doing a show and teaching some clinics and stuff. And someone said, "Hey, how can I connect with you?" And I said, "Just look up our website, masterlimbs.com." And I remember a person looking at me, and they looked like a puppy dog. Their head turned sideways, and they said, "What is that?" And I went, "Oh, people away from Abilene, Texas doesn't know, they don't know that brand, that name."
mhm,
So then that's when we began to transition the name. If you were outside of Abilene, Texas, if you were seeing our name, it was on ESPN, and it was either Chip Townsend or Team Chip, because that's what we called our team. And
mhm.
so we transitioned the name to Team Chip Taekwondo. And then after a while, I've studied Kempo, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, Kali Eskrima, and a lot of different stuff through the years. And when we're teaching that stuff, we're teaching it in our black belt curriculum. And, then we opened a full traditional Brazilian Jiu Jitsu program under Carlos Machado. And I told Glenn Ann, I don't want to be pigeonholed as just a Taekwondo school. And I have to say that, the publicity that Taekwondo has gotten through the years with the Olympics and some stuff has not always been really positive. And
No,
so I didn't, when people ask, "What's your style?" Hey, my foundation is Taekwondo, but
yeah.
we do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. We have some elements of Kempo and some other things mixed in. Uh, so I think, one of the things that we look at all the time is what we teach functional? Is it going to serve the populace and what the people need and what they want, right? And so our curriculum is almost exactly what it was when you were here, but we've
Mhm.
done a little trimming here, a little trimming, a little adding here, just to bring function. I want it to be functional.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think again, I think you and I are very close. If we were to put our curriculum side by side, very close in how we do things. I believe. Just I think we're running parallel to each other. I think that runs about
Yes, sir.
11 years behind you. So hopefully in another 11 years or so, I'll be up where you are. But I know even with our black belt curriculum, we have like every year that we're doing now, every black belt cycle, we actually mix in a couple different styles. So
Nice.
whatever when you're into like there's the current one that we're actually doing Olympic style sparring, but we're also going to be doing sports MMA style sparring, and then we're adding a little bit of sword, like Kyamaru style sword stuff for
Right.
this semester. And then next semester we're going to be doing more bow staff stuff, and we're also doing a little bit of Hapkido, self-defense,
Nice.
and Krav Maga. So every year, I think in the following for like 2026, I think we'll be doing some jiu-jitsu stuff. Like every year is going to be completely different. So it's not just
Nice.
your standard Taekwondo curriculum that you have to do, like your forms and whatnot, and your hunbuns and whatever, but also whatever cycle you're in, you're learning a couple of martial arts. It's like being a black belt going to graduating high school. Now you're in university and you get to kind of pick your majors or minors, right? So that's kind of how we're doing.
Absolutely.
Really mix it up so our students get a really good education in martial arts. I know myself personally. Again, I've studied probably about 7 or 8 different styles and have
Right.
ranked a few different ones. So and at the end of the day, though, to me, my philosophy is martial arts is martial art, regardless of what style. And I think at the end of the day, it's almost the same thing. It's just some have weapons, some don't. And I think a lot of it also is modern martial arts. And the reason why we have so many different styles is just based on the rules. Like why is World Taekwondo versus International Taekwondo so different? It's just a rule set. Olympic Taekwondo
Yep.
has foreign rules, so we train certain differently. ITF Taekwondo has its different set of foreign rules, so you guys train a little bit different. Then you got kickboxing, or judo versus jiu-jitsu. They're virtually the same art, except for judo is more focusing on the takedown, where jiu-jitsu is more focused on the ground, but they came from the same root,
Right.
right?
Right.
So,
Yeah, I like it, and I agree. You become a product of the rule set that you train under, kind of,
mhm,
sort of, and I fully agree with that. So if you're constantly only training Olympic style Taekwondo, you'll always be, limited to that mindset. And the
right,
problem with that is, in my mind, is, you know, uh, if I need to use self defense or I need to defend myself, I need to be programmed to do it right, and I need to program to hit the right targets, and that's why I think it's important that we kind of mix that stuff up, and we make it as functional as possible. I tell my students all the time, by training in class today, we are trying to pre-program you for a situation that we hope never happens 5 years from now. We're
mhm,
programming a response into you, not a knee-jerk reaction, but how to handle that, or to uh, uh, bring that situation down and control it. So yeah, I think it's super important. So that's why, to me, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a perfect complement to Taekwondo. Taekwondo and kickboxing, a lot of stand-up, striking, control. Hapkido, we had a lot of basic sweeps and takedowns and basic throws, some small joint manipulation type stuff. And then the Jiu-Jitsu really emphasizes, hey, once we're on the ground, how do I, what direction do I go with this, and how do I control it? So I feel like, and we mix in, like I said, some Kempo as well. Trained with Hanshi Dave Kovar quite a bit, and so I've mixed in some of his contemporary Kempo into our curriculum for our black belts. But one of the things that I wanted to say, though, is we keep our students, if they sign up for Taekwondo, up to their first level of black belt, they stay solid Taekwondo curriculum.
mhm,
And then once they get to black belt, we really begin to diversify. That way they get a good solid foundation. I wouldn't care if they had a solid foundation at jiu-jitsu or Kempo karate or Taekwondo, but I want them to have a really good foundation to stand on. Now, when we bring in another style, they pick it up easier. It's easier to make those transitions. Uh, and so that's kind of the way we do it here. So similar to what you're saying, in our black belt cycles, we rotate in. For this cycle, you're going to be working some fundamental jiu-jitsu along with your Taekwondo form and self defenses and one steps. And then the next cycle, we're going to work in some Kali and Eskrima. And the next cycle, we're going to be working a little more Krav Maga style knife defense stuff.
exactly,
So,
exactly. Yep. So yeah,
and
our
it's
students are spending, depending on how long it takes to get the black belt, 4 to 5 years, building that Taekwondo
right.
foundation. Yeah, so again, when you are starting to learn the inner elements of other martial art, you learn them faster, plus you're understanding that, oh, wait a minute, that concept actually helps my Taekwondo or vice versa. I find like, when you learn it later on, when you learn different styles, like, wait a minute, that's in Taekwondo. It's just, different, but it's there, or that technique is there. That sweep we do
Right.
in that pattern, but you didn't really think of it. Or I find sometimes when you're working some of the self-defense or better style, you look at your form or your katas or your moves and you go,
Right.
"Oh my god, it's there." When you actually start looking at it, it's there. It's been there all
Right.
along. I've been doing it for how many years, right? And it's
And
kind of
didn't
cool.
Yep, and didn't quite realize what I was doing, but now it's like,
Yep,
okay, this makes sense, right?
yep,
So
yep.
yeah, that's a lot of fun. And the other thing is I think it's important that we talk about this a little bit is retention. One of the
Mhm,
big issues in martial arts schools is retention. Like, how do you keep your students interested and excited and moving forward? And I read something years ago that said we teach like this a triangle, and when they're white belts, we pour all this stuff on them, and when they're yellow belts, and as they get higher and they
mhm.
get into their reds, browns, and then black, we don't have a whole lot left that we teach them. And
Oh, I
so
know.
one of the mindsets we've had for years is let's take that and open it up like this. And when they hit black belt, now there's some fresh material and they're constantly growing, right? And it's
Yes,
important, but it's important for retention. We want to
yes,
create lifetime martial artists. We've got to entice them and get them to do it and help them and to enjoy it enough to make it a habit and then eventually a ritual in their life that they won't let go of. And that takes
mhm,
time, and it takes shuffling that curriculum a little bit and keeping it interesting, but also at the end of the day, I think it's functional. It's got to work, right?
yeah. And I think, so some people might be thinking that we're thinking business mindset right now. Yeah, it's good for our business, but our ultimate goal is to serve our students, and we know the longer that they stay with us, the longer we can help them or serve them. And we
Right.
have got so many benefits from the martial arts that we know what it does to people and confidence and whatever. And yeah, we need to figure out ways to keep them here longer, right? Because you and I, if you told us to do a front kick for an hour, we could do a front kick for an hour, and
Right. Right.
we wouldn't get bored, right? We would just do it because we love it so much. Other people, they do it for a minute. It's like, what's next? Okay,
Right. Well,
fine. We're gonna do it.
come on, man.
We're gonna do it
Yeah.
on the bag. We're gonna do it on the paddle. We're gonna do it with a partner. Like we're gonna try to disguise the repetition, right?
Yes, yes. I was about to say, disguise that repetition, maybe we have to be masters of disguising the repetition so that we can keep people interested because everyone has a microwave mindset and nobody, we need to have a slow cooker mindset. Let's cook it for years and make it awesome. But everybody
Well,
wants it now.
one of the main problems is these things right here are pretty the world at when I came down to Texas, I literally had like a flip phone. Just the date of how old
Right.
we are. It's like a little flip phone. You can do nothing on that. Now you have literally the world. So I know with our Black Belt curriculum, our Black Belts actually have access to it. We have a Google Docs that's just for the Black Belt that has all the curriculum, all the video of everything
Nice.
that they have to know, right? And it's all like you tell, like it's literally it's right here. Like you guys are spoiled so badly that you have all this video stuff. And there's like but they would rather spend their time watching Mr. Beast or Logan Paul or whatever YouTuber's out there versus like, come on, we got the good stuff right here. Come on, you know.
That's right. I love it, man. The phone is like a curse and a blessing all in one, man.
Mhm,
We have the world at our fingertips, but at the same time, it can sure distract your life and cause you to become impatient and short-sighted. And I don't know, you got to balance that thing. So I try to keep mine off to the side a lot.
Oh, I know. Yes, I know. It's hard sometimes when we do all our business on there. So you and I well, you're retired now, but I'm still a competitive ranker, but we were competitive rankers at the highest level, the ISKA. We've also done like USBA and a couple other stuff. What got you into wanting to compete in competitive ranking?
Okay. So it was a total accident, Jonathan. We took over our school. We bought it and took it over in 1995. And so I had some imposter syndrome like bad. And I still do sometimes. I think we all do. And if we're honest, but some imposter syndrome kicked in and I was like, oh my gosh, if some, bad boy came in here, could I handle myself and handle him? So I got crazy aggressive training myself and going and fighting. My students didn't know, but I'd have my black belts. We would spar 2 or 3 on 1, and I would do just rounds and rounds and train, and I'd go fight in tournaments. And I was doing it because I needed to know, like, who am I? Can I do this? And I had fought in tournaments as a kid, but I was taking it to a different level. So I went and won some really big tournaments, Olympic style, some kickboxing stuff and different things. And One day, just out of the blue, I'm at the school working and probably sitting in my office, twiddling my thumbs, hoping the phone would ring, but I was working. I was doing something. And Glenanne calls me and she goes, "Hey, Chip, there's a breaking competition going on television." And my first response, this is to be silly, was, "Baby, I don't dance. I don't know what you're talking about." And she's like, I don't mean breakdancing." She said, like, there are people breaking boards and bricks and stuff in some kind of competition. And I was like, like martial arts stuff? And she goes, "Yeah, martial arts stuff." And so this was around 99, because my first year to compete was 2000. So at the ISKA. So I said, "Okay, that's cool." She said, "But it's on ESPN. This is really cool." And I said, "Okay." And here was what she said. You got to kind of take this for, she said, "Chip," she said, "this is not good. You would kill these guys," is what she told me. When your wife says that to you, you kind of go, "Cool."
Oh.
So I said, "Honey, if you can figure out what it is or who sanctions it, let's call them." And so she started digging around. It was kind of pre ubiquitousness of internet, and smartphones definitely. And she finds out it was the ISK, and
Uh-huh.
we Jay Boatwright was the breaking director at the time, and she gets a hold of it. And so he get his number. He called me or I called him. I don't remember. And I said, "Hey, I'm kind of interested in this breaking competition y'all hold." And he goes, "Oh yeah, it's a real special thing. It's super limited, and we only have at the time I think they said like 20 slots." And he said 4 of those slots are reserved for European champion, Australian champion, and international champions. And he had this kind of big, story. And he said, "We won't just take anybody." And I said, "Okay, fair enough." And he said, "Have you ever done breaking?" And I said, "Yeah, I've done a fair amount. We break at our demos and testings and stuff. And I've broken concrete and boards and different things for years." And he said, "Can you send me some video?" And I said, "I can." So we got kind of excited, and we had to take VHS and put 2 VCRs side by side, and we patched together a demo reel on VHS. And then I was getting excited, like, cool, this might be kind of fun. So I overnighted it to him. And the next morning at about 10 o'clock in the morning, he calls me and he said, "Chip, we just got your video. We just watched your video. Can you come this year? We want you." And I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "But I have a question. I've never even seen the competition. My wife told me about it. What am I supposed to do?" And he said, "Just bring your 6 best breaks." I'll never forget this. He said, "Pick 6 of your favorite things, come do it on stage." And I said, "I'll be there." So we signed up, registered, and I got there. And I remember sitting backstage, Jonathan, and being scared, kind of alone. The event is huge, as you well know. There's
Uh-huh.
bazillions of people in the rings and in the one arena, and the breaking guys, the big stage, and all these guys are walking by that are in their martial arts uniforms and breakers, and I'm just kind of waiting, like with my little pile of stuff. And I vividly remember this, hearing guys walk by and kind of snicker, "Oh, another Taekwondo guy." Yeah. And just walk past. And it really kind of made me mad. And so, anyway, that was what got it started. And we also realized what a great opportunity to get our platform out there more. If we're going to get some ESPN exposure, let's do this and do it right. So, long story short, I broke that first year. I did my 6 breaks. And I don't know if you remember, back then, there was not a station limit. So these guys were doing like 30 breaks. They were doing just pop, and it was mostly palm strikes and elbows and stomps, nothing flashy, just power stuff, right? And I thought, there's no way I'm even going to place. These guys, I missed one break. I had hit one thing twice, and I ended up getting 4th place. And I kind of thought, wow, that wasn't too bad. I sure wish I would have won, right?
Yeah.
So we drove home on cloud 9, packed in our vehicle with our little team, talking about, you know what, we got a year, guys. Let's win this thing next year. Uh, we know more of what we need to do now. So anyway, that's kind of what started it. And back to the name Team Chip for our school. Another funny thing. The reason that name come up is whenever we first went, we had to fill out an ESPN biography. And I
Oh,
asked,
yeah.
I was like, why do I have to fill this out? And they were like, "Well, the commentators are going to be talking about you and they don't know who you are. So tell them something." Like, it was like, "What's your height? What's your weight? Where are you from?" Just generic stuff. And at the bottom it said team name. And I had a handful of guys there, and I looked over and I went, "Hey guys, what's our team name?" And I'm a dummy, right? I'm like, And somebody went, Team Chip. And I was like, no, really, let's come up with a team name, right? And they were like, no, Team Chip, just put it on there. So I put Team Chip on there. And then when we did I never had a year that we didn't make the ESPN cut. And so every year we were on ESPN, at the bottom, it would say Chip Townsend, Team Chip. And so there came the disconnect whenever we would tell people our school's called Master Limbs. And then I would be outside of Abilene and people would be like, we don't know what that is. So anyway, that's why we changed the name. It wasn't a vanity thing. It was people were beginning to recognize Team Chip, but they didn't know what Master Limbs was.
Yeah. No, that makes sense for sure. Yeah, no, I remember I've seen every ISK World Championship for breaking since 1999. I actually Larry Fields one year gave me all the DVDs for me to look at. Um, he wanted me to do some editing for him. I ended up not doing it. I was a little bit over my reach at that time. But yeah, like I remember you mentioned it on one of your podcasts about studying every competitor, and I've literally watched from '99 up to this year when I came back. I've seen every competitor, different routine. And you can kind of see the trend over the year.
Right.
What was doing good, what wasn't doing good. Like there was, there's different little mini eras of what actually won and what didn't, and it's definitely the era right now. It's definitely a little bit different than like just pre-COVID. The way they're scoring has changed a little
Right.
bit in creative, especially. That's why I specialize right now. It's like the one championship I want is creative. I get like second, fourth. Like come on, just give me the
Right.
right? Like, at least you got one. I'm the 2011 IMKA three directional world champion because your team Chip held for me, and I won that one. And then for like 3 years after that was second place, second place, second place. So I
Right.
had one board every year, one board. And like, but the numbers were going up higher, so that was kind of win in itself. That
Right.
progress. I'm like, why is it one board? And then I know I went against Larry Fields the one time where we had that. They did the 2 round at one point where they
Right.
had the
Right.
top two, and those were the ones that made it on TV. And then I beat Larry in the first round, and then he beat me by one bloody board in the second round.
Oh.
And then that same year we were doing the power kicking, and same bloody thing. Like, come on, like whatever. I'm like right now. I'm just like, I need that one. I need that one more just so I can retire. But well, it's nice to be able to
Well,
go out on your own terms, right?
yeah, absolutely. So whenever 2008 was my last year to compete, and that one was special because in 2004 was the first year that they ever did the World Ultimate title, like the overall.
Yep.
So I won it in 2004. I won it in 2005. I severed my Achilles in 06, so I took that year off. 2007, Century offered me a deal to go do a show for them in Las Vegas, so I did that. And I was hearing through the grapevine through people like, oh, yeah, Chip's not ever going to compete. He can't compete because he got injured and all this kind of stuff. So I told my wife, I said, I want to go back one more time and re-win it. So I went back and re-won it in 2008. And then after that, I backed off. I didn't, my mindset, I hope this doesn't come across wrong, but I saw some older breakers out there that were really just every year coming back and not doing well. And I didn't want to be 65 still chasing a title. You know what I mean? And so 2008, I won, I think, creative, combat board. I won, several divisions, and I won the ultimate again. And so I just said, you know what? I feel pretty uh, at peace with this where I'm at. And I don't want to go back and miss it one year. And then I'm going to feel like, oh, I left something on the table. I have to go do it again.
Uh,
And I really felt good about it. So anyway, with that said,
now,
I
people may not know this in 2008 was when you won that, especially when you won the combat one, you won that with a broken arm.
yeah,
And you set
I did.
a new world record in that division with a broken arm after you were doing that in creative. You had that one break where Steve Fisher was hanging on to the concrete and he lets go and you come down on it,
Right.
rotate it and broke the arm, but yet you
I hit
still
the, yeah,
right. If I was there, I
yeah.
remember that. It's like, ooh, that's not good.
Well, it's funny that's such a great, I think kind of a great story because number one, let's make sure everyone knows it was Steven Fisher that held those bricks, because I always
Yep.
give him a hard time about it. So listen, when that happened, I finished the creative routine and I actually won the creative division. And I remember going, when the team started clean, there's time, you got to get the stage set up, you got to break, you got to clean up. It's all pretty tight. Our team cleaned, and I normally would help clean my own stage. I felt sick to my stomach, and I was like, man, my arm is killing me. I don't feel good. And Glenann didn't know yet. We walked off the back of the stage, and I'm sitting there, and I said, babe, I think I might have broke my arm. My arm is hurting pretty bad, and I hit those bricks a little funky. And she said, oh, no way. And I said, yeah. So I got in the floor, and I tried to hold a push-up, and I couldn't hold weight on my arm. And I got back up, and I said, babe, yeah, I can't even hold my body weight. Like this, push-up's not a problem. I can't hold my body weight, just the pain. And she said, I sit down beside her, and I'll never forget this. We're sitting on those steps coming off the back. She leans in and she whispers in my ear, because the only division left was combat board, and it's 8 seconds, right?
Yeah.
But you have to use both hands and both feet. And
Mhm.
she whispered in my ear, she said, you can do anything for 8 seconds. And I went, okay, we're doing it.
Mhm.
And so they let me put one. I'll never forget. They said you can have one layer of tape on your arm, and that's it. So we put one wrap around real tight, and I got on stage and got busy. And we I don't want to beat this up too much, but I really feel like that was a kind of a God moment for me, because I remember hitting the first boards, and I don't remember anything after that. But I remember someone like kind of grabbed me, going, "Hey, you're done," because I was just hitting. And I
Mhm.
walked out of the center of my guys. I don't know if you remember this, but I put my hand on my head and I dropped to my knees
Mhm.
because the tunnel started closing. I was trying to pass out.
No, I
And
remember I do that very
yeah,
clearly. There's a lesson in that because I've experienced the same at least twice in break. One in creative where partway through, I think I can't remember what year it was. I think the year that I got second or third place in creative, I did a spinning hook kick on the concrete slab, broke them, but when my foot hit the ground, you can actually see it. It kind of hit sideways, so I kind of stepped over it, kind of twisted it, and it broke my metatarsal like a spiral
right.
break. And then I did the rest of the routine. But when something goes a little bit wrong, you just do it, right? You literally just
Yes.
do it. And then when I did my first world record with Cobourg down at the International Martial Arts Festival every year in October, I did a world record where it was self-held board, where you're hanging onto your boards yourself and you're breaking them. And the ones that are breaking, yep, you don't feel them, right? The second one or two of them don't break, okay, this is starting to hurt. And at one point, and I had a minute, I was going for a minute going and hitting, and I broke my hand partway through, and I knew I broke it. And even though I said it, I know I did. And I broke it, and I'm in front of a couple thousand people. There's a commentator cheering, commentating. You can hear
Right.
them. Like, oh my god, you just gotta keep going. You just gotta go through the pain, and you kind of ignore it. You literally forget it. But what in that is, at least for self-defense, if you ever gotten into a situation of self-defense, you have the mentality that you can push beyond any pain that you want to survive. That's important to
Mhm.
work. And in life, that whatever pain comes your way, you have that ability to push
Right.
through it. If you're really,
Well,
we've proven that in ourselves that yeah, we can do that. Like anybody can do it.
absolutely. And for people that are not competing at this level, how does that work for the kids in class? Like, kids are learning this every day in class. Every time they get swept and they fall on the ground a little bit hard, and they don't break fall correctly, and maybe they get the wind knocked out of them, and they
Mm.
get back up and they get the opportunity to go, okay, that wasn't so bad, I can survive that. Now guess what? Some kid knocks them down on the playground and get the wind knocked out of them. They're not as likely to panic. They're going to be more in control, right? So I think it's powerful what you said. We've learned about ourselves, but also we get the gift of giving that back to our students in a controlled fashion, and they get to
Yeah,
learn, like, oh, my boundaries are much bigger than I realized.
yeah.
I'm stronger than I thought, right? It's a powerful thing.
Yeah, sometimes, for outsiders, it may look cruel to a certain extent that you're pushing these kids or your students to kind of go through some of that stuff. I know when a child here falls or something, and you kind of wait for a second to see if you're going to cry. I don't ever ask them, "Are you okay?" I kind of gauge it.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're good because I find the second you say, "Oh, are you okay?" then they start tearing up, then they start crying. And there's that reaction. But if you don't give them
Right.
that reaction, they can think for a second, everything's okay, we're good, and then they can get stronger from that. Or like I know when we do like our color belt testing, especially the students that are doing their last color belt before they move into the black belt cycle, we'll make them like do like 2-on-1 sparring or like 3 or 4 rounds, one after another, bam bam. Like we're really pushing them hard,
Right.
and then we do the last thing we do, we kind of give them a send off where we make them lay on the ground and we get something on top of them with a shield, and they got 3 minutes to try and get out of there, right? And if they get out of
Right.
there, the 3 minutes is over with. But like they're exhausted, right? They've gone through a full color belt training. They went through all that
Right.
hard sparring. Now they got this person that looks like most times a bigger person holding them down, and they just gotta go. Like, no, there's no laying there, kid, or even out. I mean, but everybody's cheering for them, and then when they finally, if they get out, everybody, even if they don't get out, like everybody in the room cheering for them. Everybody wants that person to succeed, but they're suffering. Like they are
Right.
suffering, but in a controlled environment or like a
And
safe.
it's yeah, it's controlled, and I think that's keywords for people to hear. It's controlled, and we're
Yeah.
doing it in a way that to help them to grow and become strong. I love that. We do very similar things, push people, kind of to the edge and get them really uncomfortable to help expand that kind of, for lack of better words, their grit and their toughness, right? So that way, if they do get shocked on the street someday, it's not as much of a shock, right?
Yeah, that is, I mean, I think that is a problem with some schools. They don't. I mean, some of the colleges they're gonna be. I'm gonna say soft. Like they don't push their student in that controlled way. And it's kind of okay. But then you also have schools on the exact opposite spectrum where they're slaughtering their students hard,
Right.
and
Mhm.
they're high schools, and they're like there's no safety, and that's no good either. Like we gotta find that somewhere in the middle, or maybe a little bit towards the harder side, but with that positive outlook that we're trying to achieve.
Absolutely. You've said something a couple of times. I wanted to kind of lean on this a little bit. Is I was reading a book a few years ago, and it was a soccer coach that took, I don't know what college team, but a female college team to the national championship, like 10 out of 11 years. It sounds like the Coach Wooden story, but it wasn't Coach Wooden. It was another guy that
Oh,
was coaching female lady soccer. And anyway, the point is uh, he talks about excellence in that book, and he was saying, there are a lot of ingredients to excellence, hard work, and all these different things. He said, but there are two keys, and we've really kind of filtered that down. And we talked to our team, and this is another one of our calling cards. You have to have a challenge, and you have to have unwavering support. And I
mhm.
love it. What you said is when those kids are under that bag and they're having to fight their way out, the audience is beginning to get engaged. They're feeling the unwavering support. It's kind of
Mhm.
like board breaking. You know this as well as I do. You have a kid in testing and they struggle breaking their board, and so you really encourage them. You let them hit a bag a couple of times. They come out, boom, they break it, and the whole
Yep.
room goes crazy.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's such an empowering moment for that kid to feel that unwavering support. They broke the board, which was the challenge, and they grow in their excellence. It's just such a great package.
Yeah, I know. I had kids even at our last testing where punches one of the harder ones for them to get sometimes, and they're not the knuckles right, and these kids will hit it 5, 6, 7 times, and you'll see them they're tearing up, but they're not giving up. You can tell, yeah, that's bothering them, but the kids at the same time like, yeah, I'm not giving up, and they'll do, and then when they eventually get it, again, the whole room explodes. It's like,
Right.
we know we just got to break through. But then the next time they come fighting, bam, they go through it, right? Um,
Right.
yeah. Oh, but going back when you're saying about us Taekwondo people going into the ISK where yeah, it originally it was kind of a lot of karate guys, right? Originally, and a couple other styles, but Taekwondo, like whatever. But Team Chip, my team Wolverine, as well as Mitt Lennox's team, we're all Taekwondo people.
Right.
We were playing, especially Team Chip, because after Mitt Lennox left or passed away, it was kind of like Team Chip and Team Wolverine. So we're talking about Team Wolverine. We were like the dominant team, and we were going back and forth. Like you guys would win some, we would win some. Especially like the power kicking event. That was kind of my thing for a while, and I was like winning every power kicking one, especially the USBA. But yeah, like our team got to compete against each other quite a bit, and it was like it was
Absolutely.
never a rivalry because we would help each other. Well, it was just really cool to have
Absolutely.
Taekwondo connection. even though we're competing against each other,
100%.
the inner styles per se. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
100%. So I made that comment about sitting backstage in 2000 and having, some of the guys walk by and I could hear them make comments like that.
mhm.
And it really lit a fire in me. And so at the time I wasn't quite as, I was a little skinnier. And so I told my wife, I said, we're going to change the view of the way people look at Taekwondo. And so I don't know if you remember, but the next year I went to a V-neck uniform because I wanted everyone to know that I was a Taekwondo representative, and I cut the sleeves off my uniform.
Uh-huh.
And I did that because I wanted to bring a different presence and I wanted Taekwondo to be respected. And then not long after that, you came along, and actually Mick came along after that as well, and then did really well for a couple of years. And I was pumped about that. But the point of that is it's that iron sharpens iron. You know what I mean? Like, we were pushing boundaries, so that made you push boundaries and made him push boundaries, and we're all growing kind of off of each other. And one of the coolest things in the world that people need to hear, we were never bitter rivalries. We were
No.
just friendly rivalries. We would push each other,
Yeah.
but we were also the first to hold boards for each other, help each other clean
Mhm.
stages if time was tight, things like that. So the level of sportsmanship that we had and still have till today, whenever we're there doing those things, is off the chart.
Oh, yeah, and even like this year when Steve Fisher retired, I held for him, he held for me. And
Absolutely.
that's what I love about competitive ranking when it's done right. Everybody helps everybody. We all want, at the end of the day, the best person to win.
Right.
We don't want them to win or lose because they went overtime or they didn't have they didn't have the same quality of setup. Like if somebody has one of their stations not quite set up ultimately, we would say, "Hey, that one pencil's not right. That board's sticking out a little bit or whatever."
Right.
Like, we
Mhm.
really good at helping each other. So at the end of the day, we want the best martial artist to win regardless. That's
Absolutely.
you know,
100%.
yes, that's
100%. I think there's a lot that the average, sports guy can learn from that. You know what I mean? It's fun to have a healthy rivalry, but it's
yeah.
not fun to have an unhealthy, bitter rivalry, right?
Yeah, well, you know what? So we got a couple minutes left. Let's just bring that up. Now, have you had it where you maybe had a competitor too that you had that unhealthy rivalry with? You don't have to mention names or anything. And then did you squash it? I mean, I know one person, probably top of my head, that you had probably a little bit of rivalry with, but yeah.
uh, You know, nothing ever bitter particularly. There were a handful of people that I could do without, honestly, but I knew their character off the stage and
Mhm.
off the spotlight. And you know, uh, but the other side of that is if they called me today and said, "Hey, Chip, I need you," I'd be there for them. I nothing bitter. And it's hard. At the end of the day, Jonathan, in God's world, we're all brothers and sisters, and we're all flawed. And
No, I agree. I
uh,
know a couple.
it's tough,
Yep.
but I had some people that we butted heads a few times. And I had people make comments to me. I'll give you a for instance, and I went to a competition in Las Vegas one time, and oops, I just bought my camera. I went to a competition in Las Vegas one time, and we were doing an ISK national instead of a world title competition. It was a national, and it was held at the Mr. Olympia contest.
Okay.
And there was a breaker that I competed with consistently. He never beat me at anything, which I don't mean to be vain, but it was just the competition. It was just the way it worked. And
Yep.
you were talking about power kicking. I was never beat at power kicking. Every year I competed in it, I won that division.
Mhm.
And so uh, we were at that competition. So imagine this monster event in Vegas with all of these bodybuilders, fitness competitors, and I was standing there with one of the guys, and I'll never forget this. This was tattooed to my brain, and anyway. And he looks around, and it frustrated me to no end because he goes, I was talking to him. I was like, "Hey, how's your wife?" And he's like, "Oh, she's good. She was pregnant, and she was at home pregnant."
Yeah.
And we're chit chatting, and he looks at me and he goes, "Man, Chip, look at all this ass. It's everywhere." And he was so excited about that, and I just looked at him and was like, "Dude, freaking wife is at home pregnant with your baby." I just walked away. It just pissed me off. And I had some issues like that where their character kind of came out, and I was like, what is this? We're all imperfect, but still, it's like, come on, man. But one of the fun things I used to do, just kind of along those lines, is I would buy. People knew that combat board breaking and power kicking were a couple of the areas that I typically did good at. So I would stack up these huge piles of boards, and I would lay at the side of the stage and just put my head on them like a pillow. And I
Uh-huh.
remember several of the guys through the years walking back and forth, pacing. Hey, Chip, how many are you going to break this year? How many are you going to break this year? And all I would say to them is, I'm going to break one more than you. Whatever you put up there, I'll break one more. Okay. Just you go get you. So I would give them a hard time all the time, but it was then fun. It was
Yeah,
never,
no, I get it. I know what I think a lot of at least the lightweight guys, we do that. We always stack more than what we're gonna break, and then come time to break, we adjust accordingly. But we play psychological games in a friendly way. It's never, we just don't want we just want to have our own psychological advantages. I
right.
know I've had a couple of rivalries, I guess, two of them, I can stick the top of my head. And actually, really never on my end per se, but I'm a super hyper competitive person when it comes to competing. But then when I'm like off stage or whatever, I'm like you, I'm just like chill back, like
Right.
just like sitting there, whatever, I don't care. But when it comes to competing, game on, time for the Wolverine. Versus you, the one eyed dragon, you got the Wolverine. Or it's game on. But the one guy, we just end up talking one day, and I found out he wasn't American, but he wasn't originally an American. He actually was from Canada originally. Once we had that connection, oh, we're both from Canada. We literally squashed it. Say,
Right.
this is an enter competitor where we were like really going at it hard, like never really in each other's face, but kinda, and to the point where I just said to him, what, enough's enough. I'm Canadian, you're American. We have different mentality, we have different backgrounds, blah blah blah. Whatever, let's just watch it, and we hugged it out, and we've been really good since then, right? Sometimes you just gotta confront that and man,
Yes.
we're trying to,
Yes.
hey, this is what's going on. Let's just resolve it. So we're all human. We're all part of God's kingdom, and let's just move forward and have a good time at what we're doing.
Yes, sir. I like it. Yeah. Again, through the years, I had a couple of guys that we didn't see eye to eye on things, but it was never anything bad. Just you do your thing and I'll do mine, and we'll
Yeah.
compete. We'll see at the end of the day who's on top.
So we got one more minute. I remember it was 1 year. It might have been last year. Yeah, it was 2008. Might have been 2008. It was 1 year, and it was you and another competitor. We're both getting in at it over a set of rules for one of the divisions. I won't say what divisions, then everybody's trying to figure it out. But it was funny. You're both trying to go at it, and I'm just like randomly standing there, and you both turn to me and go, "Who's right? Which one of us is right?" I'm like, uh, technically you're both right because it was the rules, the way the rules were. You both had different strategies, but you were both utilizing the rules properly. It was just,
Right.
but like you guys just weren't in the heat of the moment understanding that you guys were talking about strategy, not rules. But it was just funny.
Right.
Both turned at me like, who's right? Like, oh crap, I'm in the middle.
Get out
So,
of the middle, Jonathan.
but again, it was just a little friendly rivalry, nothing important, but it was kind of cool.
Sure.
But yeah, no, I want to thank you for spending this last hour getting to re-know you for the audience and get to know you. For anybody that wants to check you out in Abilene, go to teamchipmartialarts.com. Or if you're like a martial arts school or a business owner, I highly recommend the Team Chip podcast or wherever you get your podcast. I've been listening to those, and there's a lot of really good gold nuggets in that. So I just want to thank you for that
Awesome.
as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jonathan. It's been an honor to be here. Great to catch back up with you. It's been a while since we had a chance to chat. And I'm proud of you, man. I've watched you kind of grow up over time, not literally, but figuratively from a distance. And I love what you're doing with your school and the way you're raising your students. And I love that you're a martial artist at heart, man. Just keep it up and keep doing great work.
Well, I appreciate those kind words.
Yes, sir.
All right. Take care.
Yes, sir. You too.